Globespan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion with the pros, the cons, the ones that have taken a side, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globespan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation building. Globespan believes that every Guyanese voice is part of the nation building. As we span the globe for voices from the diaspora and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana.
This land is our land now.
As the world turns on its axis, bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adapt to those changes for a better Guyana for all. Globespan stands on its axis with its belief that one nation, one Guyana, one destiny must include voices from all corners of Guyana.
We ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to one of another Globespan 24/7 program. As we have been at this every Wednesday and Mondays. Mondays are with Dr. Rose, and you have seen many different moderators or hosts on Globespan and the Wednesday programs. Multiple type of guests from all walks of life, and we're here again today on this Wednesday. While I'm making these announcements, I would like to encourage you to share Globespan program. There's the share button both on Facebook and YouTube that you could be able to send across to your friends and family. Globespan 24/7 is in its 6th year, offering a community service for all voices. The platform invites all political parties, civil and religious leaders to share their opinions and address concerns. You can contact Globespan 24/7 by calling 631-782-8684, or you can email support@globespan247.com. We have a packed program tonight. I know everyone is really excited and want to hear about this nomination day and the interpretation of nomination day from no other than Mr. GHK and also Senior Counsel Timothy Jonas, both who have been on this platform many times and certainly has been major contribution towards discourse that we've been having there. So I want to start off tonight by talking about the nomination day, and also I think try to see the interpretation or the disposition of the voters. What are we seeing from the visibility we had on nomination day? So there were surprises, and there were not many surprises. I think everyone were expecting a very large crowd from the PPP, and they stepped up. Very large crowd from the PPP, very large crowd from APNU. And I believe there was also expectation, or rather, I suspect that most did not expect such a large crowd from AFC. And certainly, quite a few of the other smaller parties that showed up. Out of 20 parties that submitted their names, I believe a total of 7 showed up for nomination day. But there was that big surprise to many. I don't think anyone could be, were all taken back from what they seen on Monday with the presence of so many supporters that came out under the WIN banner. So I want to start with Mr. GHK. He's a political analyst. He's a commentator, no stranger to our discourse. And I like him to first start the interpretation of what he's seen on nomination day.
Well, thank you, Mr. Singh. Good to be here with Council Jonas and our viewers, listeners. My privilege to share with you. Good evening, all. I know it's getting warm over there and it's getting warmer here in Guyana. Nomination day, as our moderator, Mr. Nohar Singh, said, it had its share of surprises, and I think the biggest surprise involved the WIN group. We expected some enthusiasm from the contestants, the competing parties. We expected something from WIN, the Mohammed-led group. But we didn't expect, I certainly didn't expect, that he would captivate the moment in terms of the numbers that came under that blue flag. And that was really saying something to me. I expected the PPP supporters to come out in their numbers, and the same thing for APNU, which is a mouthful for me. I really, let's get this out of the way. APNU is really PNC. Good. It's just like the PPP. If you get X, Y, and Z with them, at the end of the day, it's the PPP. So yes, APNU, I say the PNC, right? And I'm making no apologies for that. And with due respect to all the other fillers with them. When everybody took a step back and said, these people have arrived. These people have arrived here. This group, this number, it does say something. And yes, numbers for the PPP and the PNC and the AFC. The AFC to me is on its way out. I'd be surprised if it does particularly well in this September 1st elections. So instead of us talking now about PPP and PNC, APNU, now we have WIN in the mix. And it's not just a straggler. The question is, between now and September 1st, what are we looking at? 6 weeks, 6 weeks and a couple of days. Voters are known to be fickle. They are known to say one thing and then vote something else. Is that going to repeat itself here? I think that when we see those numbers, my interpretation, folks, is that it is an expression, it is an indication of where Guyanese are with what has happened to them in the past 5 years, approximately 5 years.
Yeah.
And they're coming out and saying, they've said to themselves, we can sit on our hands, or we can stand up and say we are here and we need change. I think that the atmosphere is right for change. And when I think about the kitty gathering kickoff, if I should say so, for the PPP, almost half of that gathering there were, I should say, from the PNC base. So I'm asking myself, if you are the ruling party, you've done so well. How is it? Where are your people? Where are your people on that particular moment? So I'm saying, I'm coming down now to Monday, and I'm saying, if the people from the interior, where the WIN group certainly has made some inroads, if you had a swarm of them coming into town and being about the Umanayana, I mean, they would have flooded the place down there. There were numbers there. And
Thank you, Mr. G.
we are set for an intense tussle here for the next several weeks.
Yeah. And Devin, if you don't mind, probably showing the video while Mr. Jonas is also commenting. Timothy, one of the things also that Mr. Ajuddin Mohammed mentioned when he were being interviewed by the reporters, he mentioned something of over 100 buses were stopped from coming in from Linden. So taking into consideration what we have seen on nomination day in person, in addition to those that are seemingly or allegedly stopped from coming, and of course taking into consideration Mr. GHK comments about the indigenous, our fellow Amerindian brothers in the outskirts, if they were there. What's your interpretation of this, Timothy?
One thing I've learned Noir, and I've learned it emphatically, is that this is all about marketing. It's about nothing else. And the key to marketing is presentation and money. Money pays for the presentation. So yes, we've seen numbers, but you got to ask yourself what's behind these numbers. The whole parade on nomination day of representatives, so-called representatives of the parties, marching in tandem to the Umanayana to present a very small package of documents to 4 or 5 members of GCOM. It's all hype. Good, we know it's hype. What's the purpose of the hype? It is advertising to persuade the people who are looking, people like us who see all of this on TV, of the strength of the party and the support of the party. But it's a facade, it's a lie. Because at the end of the day, the numbers who turn out to walk on that day don't necessarily represent the support of the party. What it represents is the administration of the party being able to finance folk to turn up at a specific hour, at a specific location to launch off this mark. Now, the PPP's got more money than anybody else in this country. So we saw pictures of large numbers of buses being arranged in Region 6, coming along, busing huge numbers of PPP folk wearing red shirts to the meeting point for the purpose of launching off this walk. It was about money. You pay for the day, you pay for a meal, and you get people who ordinarily would stay home, have nothing better to do. They are now enticed, incentivized to come and walk. I believe that's what happened. I believe that the same applies to Win. A lot of people were incentivized to turn up, get their free shirt, get a meal, be trucked in. There was no mention about who financed all of those buses that apparently were coming from Linden. But the answer again is obvious. People in Linden don't of their own accord decide to incur the expense to rent a whole bus to bring 13 of their friends to town to support Win. That is an orchestrated, paid for advertising gimmick.
Yeah.
For me, more realistically, was PNC, because I don't think they have those finances. And they had a much less impressive crowd than the PPP, but they did have a plausible crowd. And I think that the difference in size should not fool anyone. The PNC support, as disorganized as the PNC is, as poorly led as we feel they might be, is just as adamant, is just as determined in terms of their support, their ethnic support base, as the PPP ethnic support base. What I can't say it surprised me, but I think that possibly it was visible for the first time this go round, was the underwhelming display by the AFC. And I think that might be the most notable, noteworthy, and factor that needs to be discussed and analyzed. I suspect that Mr. Hughes has miscalculated in his leadership of the AFC. The AFC has made no apology for the 2020 elections fiasco. He was not involved, but AFC members were involved. They've not apologized, they've not come honest, and they have not recognized what their voter support base was. And I think that disconnect between them and their voter base that existed in 2015 and in 2011, that disconnect has now manifested. I really think that they're in serious trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tim, for me to understand clearly, what I gather from you is that you feel that strongly the big crowds with both Win and PPP, a majority of that was marketing, was having the financial means to be able to bring out the crowd and incentivize them to be out. But you also said that in the case of APNU, that's where rubber meet the road, that their turnout being they don't have the type of finance, but those turnouts are more real. Am I understanding that correctly, Tim?
To an extent, we got to consider the factors. First of all, the APNU turnout was much more modest than the PPP turnout. So I am trying to explain that difference. The other aspect is we're in Region 4, we're in Georgetown. This is PNC local. So it's much easier for PNC folk to turn up in Main Street because they live in nearby.
It's a good
And I
point.
think that was another factor.
That's a good point. It was in their locality. So, Mr. GHK, I was sort of from my looking at it from my visibility of it, I felt this is a part of the disposition or display of the disposition of our Guyanese voters today. If you look at the Win crowd, a lot of youths were in there and have crossed over both of the main races. And as you pointed out, the indigenous Amerindians were not there because of their the geographic location. Are we reading a change in the landscape, in the political landscape, or is it what Timothy Jonas is saying? A lot of this is marketing. Is it are we seeing the disposition here of our Guyanese voters, where they're turning out in numbers for what is a new party, someone that is not established and doesn't have all the political experience as the other main parties have? Your word, Mr. GHK?
Well, again, I hear Council Jonas and marketing and money, and certainly that had its part to play, and it's not a small part. And I understand that the Win Group is self-financing. We know that the PPP has more money than all the groups put together. And yes, I endorse a dangerous word in this country for me. What Council Jonas said about marketing and APNU base in Georgetown. But I want to say something here. The PPP has gone to its place, and I go back to that kitty gathering, and you've got 8,000 people, and it's called a tsunami of support and so on. But I want to remind of what I said earlier, that if close to half, 40%, whatever it is, of that gathering was from the PNC base, traditional PNC support base, and we know what we're talking about there. Where are your people? So I think there is some disillusionment on the part of PPP supporters. Council may disagree with this, given my own take about fickleness of voters and the tribal pull and so on and so forth. But again, now look, the PNC showed that in the Square of the Revolution when we thought that it was going to be a moderate crowd. They had a pretty sizable crowd in their kickoff meeting. I think it was Sunday, July 7th or 6th. Wherever Win goes, this is where I think the winds are blowing in terms of people are coming out. People are coming out. Let's be frank here, brutally frank. The man has no plan. The man has no program. The man has no strategy. I don't think I've heard a vision. I don't think he has a team to speak of, and that has been recognized. But yet, wherever he goes, people are coming out to greet him, at least. Are they going to vote for him? Well, that remains to be seen. And again, the fickleness and money is going to have a lot of impact here. But I do think that with cost of living being at killer proportions, and we're not going to have the people from Bel Air Park and Republic Park coming out in those gatherings. We're going to have people who are young people and whomever who are feeling the squeeze, who with soaring prices. I mean, prices, I don't really go to the markets and supermarkets. I send people.
Yeah.
But the fact is, prices are killing people. They hear about all this money. They hear about these gaudy statistics, which are pretty well based mathematically. And they're like, well, what the hell is happening to me? How is it that no money or money in real tangible terms, and I'm not talking about $1 million a year a month, how is that not reaching to me? So I feel that the folks here, that aside from nomination day, I sense that there is a feeling of resentment in the population, a feeling of
Yeah,
desperation. That look, we've got to get something going here for us, or there's nothing is going to come for us for the next several years.
yeah, yeah. So one of our comment that came in from Mr. Daniel Stoll is to wear the wind jersey, you had to be brave because the victimization by the present government, also by businesses, men and politicians. And I think that speaks volume too, given the landscape that we have been in terms of the sequence of events that happens anytime you step into the political arena, or you have a comment, or you have an opinion that is differ from status quo or the party that you represent. Mr. GHK, you said several things there. You're talking about cost of living. You're talking about the level of probably frustrations within the country. But you're also saying that, some of those folks that came out may have just been there as may not has been would not probably transpire into votes. I kind of want to see if we could read that differently, that if it is that where people are turning out in numbers because they're moving away from what Timothy Jonas has spoke about so many times on this program, the racial voting or the voting going back to the two major parties. He spoke so many times, and so many others have spoken on that. And what we've seen was a surprise on Monday. I don't think most people was expecting that type of crowd. Why are we not reading into it as if, yes, there is a change. There may be a light at the end of the tunnel for Guyana and Guyanese as a whole. Maybe we are moving away from the main parties. Maybe we are moving away because if you look at the crowd, there were truly a lot of youths in there. So I kind of want to, shift to Timothy Jonas here because this could be what you have been looking for, Mr. Jonas. You've been talking so much about the shift. And is this an opportunity for us to encourage that among the new generation? Go ahead, Tim.
No, Harry, I always admire your optimism and your stubborn and determined optimism. One day I hope that what you are saying is proved true, but you'll forgive me, I remain skeptical. I'm talking about marketing, and part of marketing is for the Indo-centric party to pretend that this is one Guyana and it is a party for all the people, and for the Afrocentric party to pretend that this is one Guyana and it's the party for all the people, which is why they have their token prime minister of the other race, and why they do their best to take photos that show people of the other race integrated into their groups, into their numbers. And I have absolutely no doubt that when the decision was made to recruit folk and pay them and make them promises so they would turn up, that it was very specifically said, y'all got to get some people looking like that into the group. We can't have everybody looking one way. So it's all part of the marketing. If you look at how determinedly, how consistently every photo taken in either group, they make an effort to have at least one person of the opposite of the other ethnicity there present, one female present, so to show gender balance, so that they can't be criticized because the other side is ready to point a finger at them and to say you're racist. The fact is, the individuals are not necessarily racist. The political landscape in Guyana does not define the individuals who are playing the game. The fact that they are playing the game reflects adversely on their ethics as far as I'm concerned, because they're playing the game. But there are good people on both sides and patriots on both sides. But all of them are playing and singing the tune, manifesting, hoping that they continue to have that ethnic support that will continue, that will perpetuate them in power. They're all playing the game. And to do it, they have to try to entice enough people that don't look like them to vote for them. And they do it by pretending we're one Guyana.
Yeah. So, Tim, if they don't take those pictures, forgive me if I disagree, of course. If they don't take the pictures and they just seem to be one set of colors or type, they would be construed as being a racist party. If they do take the pictures, you feel it's some people interpret it as photo ops. But as I've tried to stress on Globespan, we must try to kind of look for a better way out of this. And I hear what you're saying. To a certain extent, I truly disagree, my friend. I really would like to see that there's a younger generation that's coming out and who are the disposition, as we named it on this program, is that they want to see change, and they don't see the change coming from the two main political parties that has dominated Guyana for its 59 years. Mr. GHK, one of the things that you mentioned was that WIN has no policies, they don't have no programs out there, and they don't seem to have a strong enough platform. One of the things one of the comments that's made several times on social media, and I think comments coming in from some of WIN personnel, is that they don't want to tip their hat too early. If they put out their proposal, if they put out their programs, it will be copied, it will be chewed apart, and they're just holding their hands. Do you think that's a good strategy, being a political analyst? Do you think it's a good strategy for WIN to hold their hands and wait until?
Well, I think you've got to speak in generalities. Politicians speak in generalities. The moment you lock yourself in to specifics at this early in the game, you can get picked off. I agree with that. Let's go back to Nigel Hughes and the AFC. He spoke in very broad terms about what he was going to do with oil, and he talks about cost of living and race relations, etc. Good stuff, good stuff. But he doesn't get into that level of granularity that somebody can pounce on it and say, "Hey, there's a hole there, and we got you." So everybody's trying to not give away a gotcha moment, as you would say in America. No gotcha moment. So you play your cards close to the chest. But I would think, and I would recommend that, yes, you don't want to tip your hand, which has some credence to it. But I would say at the same time that you want to give the prospective voters some idea of where you stand on the bread and butter issues without coming out with a big laundry list of intended policies and programs and so on and so forth. That is what how I would approach this setup here. And I think as a newcomer, the onus is on the Mohammed team to come out, craft a neat package that to go to Consul Jonas's thing about marketing. It's really teasers about with promise sweeteners. The other man is going to do that, and Aplu said he was going to do these things. Well, we've got a different idea, and this is how we're going to go about this. And I think WIN has to give it's new. So as being the new kid on the block, it's got to step up a little bit, not give your whole hand here. Now, in terms, before I hand back the microphone to you folks, I want to say both yourself and Consul Jonas here about this business, about optimism. I don't like to do this publicly, but I'm going to, outside of the church, but I'm going to say this. Hope, straight from Scripture, New Testament, hope is the reassurance in things unseen. And they got different translations of that. As a believer, as a worshiper, if I ain't got hope, I ain't gonna be on this program. Let me be frank with you folks. If I didn't have hope, I won't be living in this country. The sacrifices I've made to come here and to do volunteer stuff and whatever. And so we've got to have, forget about light at the end of the tunnel and the dawn is whatever. The darkness, the always darkness before dawn. I am saying that we've got to look at this thing and say,
Yeah.
yes, the people are coming out in the streets to meet him. Yes, we've got these numbers here. Yes, we know there's disgruntlement with the ruling party in terms of what it has done and not done, who has gotten and who is not. So therefore, the winds of change just maybe stirring a little bit. And that's my basis
That's
for
hope. That's hope. That's hope. I think you got some votes from some folks in my home, though. Timothy Jonas has lost some of those votes in the
where he
past.
lost his vote.
He, he,
He
he lost
abstained.
his votes, but I think he gained some votes. I want to come back and ask the next question to Timothy Jonas. What's his interpretation of how he feels would be the future for AFC? But before I do that, I just want to make some additional announcement to our viewers that we as Guyanese brothers and sisters, to help us achieve some of the goals and visions that we have here at Globespan. You just heard one of them, hope. The others is to build a society that's much more informed from all sides. Now we get licks from many different sides for not taking a specific side, or they feel we are anti specific political parties. That is not the case. The case is that we are trying to bring in a discourse, conversation, and ideas from all different parts. And many of these folks, we invite them. Some of them used to come on the program. Some right now are not available. But we also want to be able to build a society where we can change from within. Unless we look from within ourselves, it is very difficult for us to affect change on the outside. And this is one of our goals, a society that can reason together, a society that can work to keep hope alive. Our vision is a country where the moral and ethical compass are directed by the word of God. Help build a Guyana where all Afro, Indo, Amerindians, and all other races value each other as equal human beings. Imagine a Guyana where her wealth becomes your wealth. And I just want to kind of do a subtext on that. Um, Without being specific, there's a lot of talks about other um, folks that are now coming into Guyana from different countries. And many of these folks are not even adhering to the laws. The commercial activities are basically in the parallel market. So while the main Afro, Indo, and of course our Amerindian brothers are at it, other people are starting to eat our lunch, our future generation lunch. And that's one of the many things that we need to count our cost. Timothy Jonas, you've been around in this political space. You know AFC from the beginning. I believe you were part of the founding members of AFC as well. Essentially, what has transpired under this new leadership? Where do you see AFC today, and do you see them picking up seats? And if so, how many seats you see them picking up in the next election, which is about 5-6 weeks away from us? Go ahead,
For,
Tim.
for clarity, I was never a member of AFC, let alone a founding member. I gave them legal advice and advice from backstage as they were starting up and launching off. And I supported them completely because by then I'd recognized the harm in the two large parties. So let me be clear on that. I want to talk about demographics in Guyana because I think that may be where we may be disagreeing, or our failure to acknowledge the existing demographics may be leading us astray. I think we can all agree that 85, maybe even 90% of the country is indelibly aligned along ethnic lines. Afros will vote PNC, Indos will vote PPP. 85, 90% of the population. Now, what we've seen is that in the last 2 months, the Mohammed family, as the Win party, has generated a lot of hype on social media, physical presence. They've gone through the country. The reason for that, in my view, is twofold. First of all, money's got its own aura. If you're rich, if you got a Lamborghini, you are an object of intense interest and curiosity. And therefore, people want to come to see what you look like, to feel, to hold your hand, to see if you're real. So that's one of the things. That was part of the attraction. Mixed with the fact that rumors spread, and the rumor was based in, to some extent, in fact, that there were some liberal handouts taking place. So that generated interest and curiosity. I think the second aspect of it is that the focus, the subject of that interest and curiosity, turned out to be an ordinary Guyanese. He wasn't a highfalutin Burnham or a puffed up Jagdeo or a academic Hughes. He's somebody like everybody else. And I think that gave hope in itself because the public now wasn't looking at some deity. We have an unfortunate habit in Ghana to deify politicians, and an effort is being made to deify this individual. But I think that as he was there in the villages and the towns talking to people, people saw a Guyanese. And I think that, together with the fact that it's a very wealthy Guyanese, gave hope that this is somebody I could be like. This is somebody that I can aspire to be like this. Maybe I can get rich like this one day. And there was a genuine empathy, a genuine meeting of minds, as face-to-face encounters happened. And I think those two factors together, the aura of money and the fact that it reposed in someone who had an affinity with the people he was talking to, and wasn't some deified character who tried to be above. I think that those two factors combined to really give this party some momentum that we haven't seen since AFC itself started. But that's where we go to the demographics. You see, the people who are making a noise for win are at the grassroots level. They are the ordinary folk who are hard-pressed financially because of rising prices, who have not received benefits of oil money, who have not seen any improvement after 5 years of APNU mismanagement and then 5 years of PPP mismanagement. They are disgruntled, they're vexed, they're looking for a change like everybody else in Guyana, and this seems to be attractive. I don't know, and only time will tell how loyal that demographic is, because that is also the demographic that tends to vote instinctively along the ethnic lines. The other demographics that the AFC attracted tended to be the professionals, the academics, the people living in town. And by 2011, there were 30,000 of them. They were not blindly loyal, but all of them, because we are all Guyanese, had a home, either in the PNC or in the PPP. They left that home and went to AFC, not because they were comfortable, but because they were rejecting ethnic politics and they had tried to rise above and go to vote on policy and support on policy. When they were betrayed by the AFC, instinctively, all that was left, unless they had another home to go to, was to go back to the party of their birth. And I think that is the demographic that is now up in the air and does not have a home, and I don't know where that demographic is going to go. Most of them, I believe, will go back to the party of their ethnic origin. Some of them, like me, that can't do that because I genuinely have rejected that and cannot vote PPP or PNC again in this lifetime, are bewildered. We have reservations about win. I mean, we are seeing the level of competence in terms of the exchanges with the media, the pronouncements, the behavior of their members. Nobody else is realistic. We're completely disillusioned with the AFC. That is the group, that those 10,000, 15,000 people that may be very, very important in terms of the razor-thin edge that is now manifesting in our elections. I don't know where they will go. That's unpredictable.
Yeah. What's your take, Mr. GHK? AFC, 1 seat, 2 seat, any seat at all?
Well, I think the star of the AFC started to fade a long time ago, and I don't think it will make much of a contribution or impact in this election in terms of the attraction of voting Guyanese. So my thing, it's not going to reach 2 seats. That seems like a strange way of saying less than 2 or 1 seat. But it really, people have no interest in there. And I think I want to pick up on where Council Jonas, some of the things he said there. I hear you talking about cost of living, which I mentioned, and I hear you talking about disillusionment and where am I today versus 5 years ago with all this money, billions. We're talking about billions of US dollars, folks. We're not talking about millions of Guyana dollars. We're talking about 1 billion US dollar you got to add zeros there that will fill this computer screen or your television screen or whatever you're looking at. That is a lot when you convert that. And yet people are saying the poor Indian, the poor Afro-Guyanese, the poor indigenous Guyanese and mixed Guyanese, well, what happened to me? Where, yeah, all this activity, all this busyness, and yet I am grasping for a meal in the course of the day. Demographically, yes, I hear everything that council says, but the demographic that we've got to focus on, and there's some intermingling here, is the poor demographic. And not necessarily the poverty line demographic, but that poor demographic, which is a composite of Guyanese, that in getting nowhere, despite being on top of the world statistically. I mean, World Bank, IMF, the World Bank says we are high income. I mean, half of the population, 4/5 of the population can lay claim to that, to being high income by half of the World Bank standards in terms of their earnings per year. I forgot what it is, 14,000 US or a year or something like that. That's $2 million. No,
Yeah.
keep going. So I feel, again, I come back here, and this is nothing to do with hope. I think this is reality here, in that, to pick up on council, this morning I had to go to a funeral, and you talk about Lamborghini and defying, etc. I have on my suit, and something happened in front of my yard, which has happened for a long time. I go to cross the road because the taxi's on the other side, and the car waits on me.
Yeah.
The oncoming traffic slows to a dead stop and waits on me. How
Yeah.
many times have I crossed that road dressed in a short jack like I am now, and the guys want to run me over?
Yeah.
Today, because I have on a suit. Now, if I got money or is reputed to have money or thought of to have
Yeah.
money in
Yeah.
terms of then, I mean, the people will come out to listen to me. He
Yeah.
has done something else,
Yeah.
gentlemen. He has done something else. He has been there long before we started talking about elections. He's
Yeah.
been going out, doing his philanthropy, doing his baby kissing, doing his handshaking, and sweet talk, and whatever else. And I think that has to count for something, because the
Yeah.
man, whatever his credentials are, he has established a record that may be appealing to the people at the bottom who feel that we have been neglected and we have been abused and used. So this man has been here. And so perhaps we should give him a listening. And I think
Yeah.
that's where all these things come together.
Okay, Mr. G. Okay, I think both you and Mr. Jonas also identify the fact that the underprivileged, the working class, those that don't are not where the oil money is not filtering down are sizable numbers. I think the international organizations still show our poverty rate around close to 50%, even though our per capita basically surpassed Trinidad and Tobago. So the numbers are not correlating in the sense of how it's spreading among the people. And that's transmitted or transpired into the numbers you're seeing in new organizations like WIN. There is a question I have for down the road, but I see one of our viewers, Mr. Sridat Rabindranath, he commented, GCOM will kick out WIN party very shortly and very soon. But this is a question I had for you, gentlemen, if we could get to some of these questions. Can GCOM be objective? Because you're talking about the two main parties, really, that constitute GCOM, with the fifth person being the chairwoman. Can they be objective, Mr. Timothy Jonas, towards these third parties? And if your answer is no, is there any recourse for these third parties?
That's a peculiar phenomenon that I'm seeing for the first time this cycle. And I think that is very peculiar. WIN is a threat to both parties. WIN is a threat to the PPP because its leadership is Indo-Guyanese. And therefore, the voter base in the Indian enclaves are happy to vote for him. So that ethnic alliance is diluted. It's washed away. They're still voting for someone that looks like them. He's also a threat to the Apnu folk because of the aura of the money, and because the party clearly doesn't care about race issues. They're embracing everybody, and his criticisms are directed to the PPP, which will endear him to the grassroots Afro community. So both PPP and PNC are worried about this party. They're both worried. And what that means is that the three PPP folk and the three PNC folks sitting in GCOM, who clearly take instructions from their masters, and if anybody disputes that, well, I'm not even gonna belabor that. They would be happy to see Win disappear. It's all right to have AFC. AFC is a threat to nobody. But they have both done their best to undermine Win, because I think they both feel threatened by Win. PPP is afraid that they will lose their majority in parliament. PNC is afraid that their voter base will be eroded even further, so that even their small chance of winning, if there are only two parties contesting, especially given the increased presence of Afro and mixed Guyanese in the overall demographics of the population, which PNC feels will give them a better chance in an election that's just between the two parties. They feel that Win is a threat to that. So both sides that know, they hold each other up. The Indo party says, don't let those people win. The Afro party says, don't let those people win. You can't trust them. Vote for your own. Win comes along and spoils that balance, and will either threaten the majority win that you want in parliament, or will erode you further if you are going to be the minority. And therefore, all 6 of the members of GCOM who are appointed by 3 on one, 3 on the other side, I think they would do their best to exclude Win if they could. I don't think they can, though.
You don't think they could be objective towards Win?
Well, I'm sorry, I know they can't be objective. They've already decided, and if you look on social media and if you look at comments, and even the comments and the questions from the media are not fair, are not proportionate, are not unbiased. But there is no question of prejudice within GCOM. They're all prejudiced. 3 on one side, 3 on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes, Timothy Jonas, it's good to shed light to the obvious. In today's world of social media, a lot could be passed on. Mr. GHK, if you want to spend a minute on GCOM, that's fine, go ahead. But my next set of questions to you is that, again, looking towards the change of our political landscape. In the PPP rally on Sunday, quite a massive crowd. But one of the things that a guy like personally myself will look for is some of the personalities also within the PPP ranks that represent I wouldn't want to say the old guards, but rather men of some level of characters and integrity. People on some of the stalwarts were not there. They were there, but they weren't speaking. Like Donald Ramutar, he didn't speak. Anil Nandalal didn't speak. Dr. Frank Anthony didn't speak. And these are men that really stood with the PPP all these years. Any interpretation as to why they weren't given a chance at such a major event for the PPP?
I'm going to come back to cult leadership in a moment, but I'm glad you asked Council Jonas that GCOM question first. No, I'll take my 1 minute at it. Yes, GCOM is where it's at, and the chairperson has compiled an impressive record of voting along a certain way, so that there is the 4-3, like if it's boxing, and that's the end of the matter. Now, I don't think they can block this guy, but I do agree with council that they're going to put their heads together and, like, what are we going to do with this upstart? If you notice something, if we're going to see how genuine the win base is. because if moves are made by GCOM to thwart him, there can be some real expressions in the street in objection to that. Now, to your point, Counsel, I want to expand it a bit, is that if you notice, traditionally we hear about PNC, PPP, and PPP, PNC bashing the PPP, and vice versa. The PNC has been muted. They have sniped at him very, very tactically. But the PPP has come out with its broadsides against this man. It's as though the PNC doesn't exist momentarily. They have come out against wins and against the Muhammad, the younger Muhammad, and they talk about sanctions and no experience and whatever else. What that tells me is that there is a level of fear. The word that has been bandied about, and I have used that certainly, is desperation. This fella is making inroads. Now, I go further. Years before he appeared on the scene, but after 2020, I said we need a game changer. We need a spoiler. We need a showstopper. And I don't know if he's going to be a kingmaker, but he is, for now, he is fulfilling those roles right now. And so that's why he's attracting all this attention about sanctions and whatever. But it tells me something when the PPP reacts so vociferously, so vehemently. It's like, we got to stop this guy. We got to do whatever it takes to do that. Now, to your question about old guard, well, old guard is old guard, my brother, right? And I think those guys, their time has passed. But because of the total control that the vice president has been accustomed to have in his hands, as part of his mannerisms, as part of his leadership style, he's not going to allow a moment like that to bring out those guys to rally the troops, so to speak. This has got to be his moment. And I'm glad you brought up Kitty. Let me say this to you. If you check that man's body language, I don't look at him very much. As a matter of fact, I don't look at him at all. But when you, I don't look at any of them, right? But when you look for a moment at the Honorable Vice President's body language, his temperature, it was not he himself. He was not exuberant. He was not over the top. He was not on the moon. He was there, and he didn't go through the motions. He was above that. But he was not his usual boisterous self. And there was something missing. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
half of me support base is PNC. So
Right.
that's what I'm thinking. Where are my people? So I
Yeah.
felt like the wind got slightly sucked out of him, and it
Yeah.
showed. So these guys are kind of looking over their shoulder, hearing Jumbie
Yeah.
behind them and blah, 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 and whatever. So there's a level of fear here, and it's not from the PNC, it's from the newcomer.
Yeah. Yeah. Strange you brought that up because I received several phone calls over the past weeks expressing the same about the president, that he doesn't seem the same. There's some sense of level of worries that he seems to be displaying. I don't know how true that is, but good. Just quickly, a couple of announcements. Travelspan have the Caribbean Throwback. It's the fourth year. It is an event that brings together people from all over the Caribbean, North America, and it's an event where they have major singers like we have this year. They have uh, Super Blue, and they also have Chris Garcia. It's in Cancun, Mexico, July 31st to August 1st, called Travelspan. And Travelspan is also having its fifth curry duck versus duck curry cooking competition. This is an all-inclusive vacation where family, friends get together from all different parts of the world. They enjoy their culture, their cuisine, their music. It has a nice meet and greet session, the cooking competition, curry duck versus duck curry. And by the way, the last 4 years, duck curry won. So there's a lot of expectation that Curry Duck will take it in its fifth year. This is also being held in Cancun, Mexico. This event is moved around different destinations. Last year it was in Jamaica, it was in St. Martin before, different all-inclusive occasion. And Travelspan have that event on August 7th to August 11th. Please call Travelspan. They have a few more rooms left on that event. And it's also packed with entertainers, Rick Ramutar, Rakesh Yankaran. They have the Tassa Group. The Mexicans love the Tassa Group. They've been there before, so I invite you to join that. Another announcement it would be from curryrotibox.com. It's a local restaurant in Richmond Hill, and they ship West Indian food throughout New York City, locally, all the way to Manhattan, Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn. And they also have a shipping arm, which is buyfromone.com, where they ship freshly cooked food, frozen, all your groceries, your curry powder, your fish, your meats throughout the United States. So if you live in California, you live in Florida, you live in Las Vegas, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, you could purchase all your West Indian food and also your groceries on buyfromone.com. So thank you again, all viewers. We have Mr. Timothy Jonas and Mr. GHK. Just to kind of dovetail back to your last comment, just yes and no on this. I mentioned those PPP members that weren't speaking. So are you agreeing, Mr. GHK, this is more of a change of our political landscape? Things are changing now, where we have new people are coming in, and some of the older people or stalwarts within the PPP are up to that are being cycled out, if I could use that word. Yes, no?
Out to pasture. But before you go, I think I need to ask a question of you, Mr. Moderator, and I'm going to take the liberty of asking it publicly on behalf of Mr. Jonas himself. How come we are such loyal presences on this program? How come we don't get a complimentary invitation and a ticket to this duck curry business? Every year you got this thing, and we are just virtually strangers. We are like, illegal immigrants or something in this setup here. I think you need to consider that, right? And what happened to Engelbert Humperdinck and Tom Jones and Lionel Richie? All them names you call, I know what them. But anyhow, old guard and new guard. The vice president made it clear we've got on our list, and he didn't say this, I think, on Kitty, over 25 people are under 25 years in our list. That tells me the old guard has gone out to pasture or being pushed out and very quietly out to pasture. I think the stage is being set here, and the old guard represents the Jagan faction and this faction and who's loyal to whom, and it's Jagdev's attempt, not a well, it's his vision of solidifying his dominance and control and monopoly in the party. Because when you get these youngsters, with due respect to them, whatever they got in their heads or in their hands, they ain't challenging nothing and nobody. Let me get this straight. If the old people where you got, if Anil Nandalal, the Honorable Attorney General, can open the mouth and talk, for certain things, other than to Pampazet and pontificate. And I like the guy. What do you think these little children can come and do? These under 25-year-old, they are not going to challenge the vice president. And that's the idea here. Whilst you're presenting, we've got a fresh slate and we've got all these new faces and youthful energy. No, youthful energy. Which one of them has challenged him in the last 5 years? Which one of them has said, hey, Mr. Vice President, you're wrong? Look at it. You talk about old guard. We have Mr. Dharam Lal is back in the PPP's list. And I ain't going down the road about, whether he should be there or not. But I'm saying, you don't give him visibility to the other guy, but you put this fellow here, who going to cause a little bit of a storm in a teacup, but he's there and he's going to stay there. So look, this whole thing is pretty well structured in Dr. Jagdev's head, this is the way I want it, this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to get this army of little ones, young ones, who are going to be the wave of the future starting today. And the old fellas, it was nice knowing you.
Mm.
Thanks for your contribution, and do have a nice day.
Yeah, right. So viewers, if you want to see Mr. Timothy Jonas turn a little red, keep an eye on his video. Timothy Jonas, one of the names that showed up on the PPP list of candidates is Asha Kissoon, along with, and the other name that came out too in Kaito News today was the former president of GTU, Guyana Teachers Union, Mr. Mark Light. Now, all individuals, of course, have a right to choosing political parties, but of course, using the word of Mr. Christopher Ram a couple of weeks ago, something like Mr. Mark Light is viewed with some suspicion, being that he sat at the negotiating table on behalf of one of our greatest assets in our country. Yes, we have gold, we have oil, but we also have teachers, and they are in a sense one of our great assets because they spend more times with our future generation than we as parents do. But I just want to get your comments though in terms of the list. PPP, Asha Kissoon, Mark Light, any other names that you pick up? Any comments in that area?
I think that what GHK Lal is saying, if I understand him, and if this is what he's saying, then I agree with him entirely. There's a recognition among the two large parties that their supporters will vote for them no matter what, come hell or high water. I don't think there's a single Guyanese right now who doesn't know how he or she is going to vote. Nobody's left to be persuaded. You are either voting as 90% of Guyanese have decided, or you were AFC and you've gone back home, or you are sold by the money, aura, and simplicity of win. I don't think there's any Guyanese left undecided. And the chips have already fallen. It's just we don't know how yet. So no PPP supporter is going to change his or her vote because there is a Dharam Lal or an Asha Kissoon on the slate. They don't care. The other day, it was touted all over social media. There were pictures of Mohammed with what appeared to be prostitutes, naked women on some river. And the response was as expected. Nobody cared because the people who supported him said, well, we know he's not gay. They're all consenting adults. They got people on the PPP who troubling little children. The pictures were taken long ago. So they started manufacturing excuses or frontally saying they don't care that this may be evidence of some kind of moral decline. And the fact is that the moral decline and evidence of moral decline in the other two parties is so much more stark or equally stark that it doesn't turn on policies, Noir. It doesn't turn on economic policies. It doesn't turn on personal ethics of the members. It turns on the fact that either you are tribally loyal or you're attracted to the aura of the money. That's where we are now. And the small minority who rose above to support AFC are homeless right now, and I think may well be bewildered. Now, you talk about the new guard and the old guard. Nagamutu left the PPP, a man who had been there for decades, loyal, faithful, and went over to AFC and took 2 votes with him. Him and maybe one other family member. There is no individual politician in Guyana that has, in the PPP or the PNC, that has any personal voter strength, voter loyalty. The loyalty is to the ethnic party. If Jagdio goes and joins the PNC tomorrow, he's not married, so he will only take 1 vote with him, his own. If Norton goes to join the PPP tomorrow, he will take 1 vote with him, his own. and he will be cussed down by his own people as a traitor, and he will be hailed by the other side as embracing one Guyana and finally seeing the light. But the fact is, it has nothing to do with policy. It has nothing to do with the fanaticism of a convert or a loyal and genuine belief in some kind of economic policy or you've seen the light. It has to do with blind loyalty to the party. And what's happened is that we are seeing a tug of war within the PPP, because within the PPP, somebody got to be in charge. And anyone who is seen as a threat has to be sidelined. And unfortunately, that happens to the best of them. I consider Nandalal and Frank Anthony to be two of the best of a bad bunch. And we are seeing that they are not at the front. They're not at the forefront. They're not being given the spotlight. I hope that changes. I hope I'm wrong. But that may be necessary so that the people who have control maintain the control within the party. They don't want that control to go.
Right. Well, Timothy Jonas, you really said a lot there. And I'm trying to see which part of it. I know which part I don't agree with at all, but I do know there are parts there that I do agree, that there are good people also within the PPP that somehow represents what's left of the goodness of our country and across the board. But I also want to say that I don't want to emulate or shed more light on people are just going to cross over, stay within their own ranks and vote race. I am hoping that what we are seeing with the new generation, that will change. Mr. GHK, in terms of your comments, Dr. Terence Campbell, who's been on Globespan, I know a lot of folks really enjoy his comments. Many of them view him as a moderate. Shockingly, well, for me, that is, he's on that list with APNU. And also you have on Win Gobind Harbajan, the good foot soldiers in Region 6, in the Berbice area. Those two names, Dr. Terence Campbell and Gobind Harbajan with Win. What's your thoughts on that, Mr. Political Analysis?
Thank you for the promotion. No, Dr. Campbell, I think, is a genuine Guyanese. I don't know Mr. Harbajan, but I've heard the name, and I think he is too. Look, people are exercising their democratic right, their constitutional right to move and join from A to Z. And we've got to learn to accept that for whatever reason. Now, Dr. Campbell may feel that at this point in time that the PNC really could use him, the energy he brings, and I think some of the principles he represents. Mr. Harbajan, I can't speak to at all, but the fact that they have moved and are where they are, it says that they're searching for something, and they feel that Guyana needs that little edge. Their group needs that edge, and they bring it, and they want to give it so that we have a different country. I think, notice my words, not a better society. I think that's at the back of their heads, but we want a different country, not like we've had before. APNU, PNC, PPP. We've heard that over and over again. And I must say that I disagree tremendously with Consul Jonas in terms that the votes are set, 90% of the votes are set from now. I would say 70% of the votes are set ethnically. But I also want to say that from a common sense perspective, from a sheer human, individual, family perspective, people are hurting in this country. Take it from me, folks. I've got some people working for me, helping me, and they are struggling to make ends meet in an oil-rich country producing 650,000 barrels of oil a day and set to do more so when oil is where it's at. Now, yes, and again, I go back, we're talking about billions of dollars. They're saying, what is this, a mirage? Or what has happened to me when my neighbor down the road, who is attached, is getting all the goodies, him and his family and his friends. So the imbalance, the bias, and I'm not talking about racial bias necessarily, the economic bias, the sharing of the pie, that has got to count for something now, and that it's greater that my child is wanting, struggling, and my family is. And at this particular moment, I'm going to put tribal loyalty ahead of that. I mean, we leave here, excuse me, I feel an allergy attack. We leave here and we go to the United States and we slave away because we want our family to be better. We want to give our children that level of education that we didn't have. We want them to be in a status that we didn't have. How do I explain or attempt to explain that in this country that is overloaded with wealth, that I just can't make it when the resources for me to do so are there, but they are not reaching to me? I mean, I got to be a hell of a guy that, well, look, Jack Day or Norton is worth more than my well-being, or leave out me, my children's well-being, that I put party in front of family. And I think I think this is where the this business here about voter settling, etc. There could be an upset here, at least in terms of some seat
Yes.
busting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you had, I we got to go back now to the question you asked, and please refresh my memory. I got caught up in that. What was the question that you wanted me to ask? I just picked up on where uh, Council Jonas was. What was that question? And I'll
Yeah.
deal with it quickly and move along.
Yeah, but if you don't mind, I mean, I want to move on to some of the numbers. Maybe you just park
Please
that
go ahead.
there. I want to move
Please
on
go
to
ahead.
some of the numbers. But I just want to read one of the comments also for Mr. John Taylor. And he's saying that Mr. June Taylor, actually, Mr. Nohar Singh, if you would like your program to be continue with lots of viewers, you have to stop this bias thing you're all going on with. And I just want to say to Ms. June Taylor that if it is we are addressing issues, commentaries, or for all political parties, I don't see where the biasness lies. And one of the things that we are trying to do here is we're not trying to be the most popular. We are not the people that have the colorful languages that would, incite the public. What we are trying to do is to create a new way forward with hopes, with looking to see if there's a glimpse of light in the landscape that will change the trajectory of Guyana. And most importantly, we want to be able to have the opportunity to call out. Now, if I like a political party, June Taylor, and that political party is moving in the wrong direction, the onus will be on me as it is on you or every and each Guyanese to address where they feel that party is going wrong so that they can make changes from within. If they don't, then the numbers that we're about to talk about will go against them. So it is not that we are trying to be biased. I think it is that we are trying to have a discourse and to call and mention and talk about things that are affecting all Guyanese. Having said that, gentlemen, if you have your pens, you may need to follow me on this. Professor Dr. Terence Blackman, who's been in Globespan several times, he sort of translate the 2020 votes and try to bring clarity to it for many people that don't understand how the seats are allocated, be it national or regional. Now, just some numbers that are extrapolate from his document. Basically, what he said is 460,352 valid votes were cast. And those valid 460,352 is how you get the allocation of 65 seats. Now, just to summarize it, he went on further to say that in order to earn one seat, it was 7,082 votes. PPP received 32.94 of those seats, which essentially they were given 32 seats. APNU was given 30 seats. No seat was allocated to any of the joiners list. But then came the top up. Now, here is where the numbers are, gentlemen, and viewers, if you could just follow this as well. PPP had 32 seats according to Dr. Terence Blackman. APNU was and AFC was allocated 30 seats. No seats were allocated to the joiners list, being ANUG and the other two parties. So the leftover seats, which what they call the top-up seats. Of those top-up seats, 6,653 votes for the PPP earned them that one seat that took them into winner's take-all majority in Parliament. APNU received a second seat, an additional seat, being they had 5,454 votes, and the joiners list received one seat at 5,214 votes. But here's where I would like to drill down further on this. On those top-up votes, with PPP earning that one seat that took them into majority, and APNU earning that additional seat that took them from 30 to 31 seats. The difference between 6,653 votes, which are the top-up votes for PPP, and the top-up votes of APNU, 5,454. The difference between those two were basically 1,199 votes. Gentlemen, from what we've seen on nomination day, and we're looking at the difference of 1,199 votes that took PPP into the one seat winner takes all majority in Parliament. Timothy Jonas, keeping that in the background, 1,199 votes with what we see with Wynne being a major player now. Where do you see this election heading into? What do you see as coming out of this election? Do you see a majority government, a minority government? Or do you see a change in the dynamics of who will be the opposition party? Any prediction there, comments at all?
Got to forewarn you, first of all, Nohar, that when you start to get into these numbers and these details, first of all, people's eyes glaze over. And second of all, you run the risk of getting sidetracked by something that can be simple, but is not being sold simply. Now, this whole thing about top-up votes, I want folk to understand how this works. Seats are allocated to each region. Region 4, of course, being the most populous, gets the most seats. So at the end of the day, that can lead to an unfair result, and therefore top-up votes, top-up seats are meant to ensure that when you look at the total votes you got in the whole country, that percentage is represented by the percentage of seats you get in Parliament. The end result really is that all of those little niceties about how many seats for each region are irrelevant. Because at the end of the day, if you get 51% of the votes in the country, you get 51% of the seats in Parliament. For me, the more important figure in the 2020 elections was that 10,000 people voted for small parties. I think that is crucially important because that was at a time when people desperately did not want to vote PPP or PNC, and there was a cacophony of noise of third parties without anyone really taking a lead, and still 10,000 people voted for them. I think that's a more important figure. That's a more important statistic, because what it means is that indeed people aren't happy, and the people who do not support the two parties insist that they will not support the two parties. They need somewhere else to go. It may be that they go to win. I don't think so. You see, I think that those people really want leadership that can explain itself, that can intelligently rationalize a policy, and I haven't seen that yet from Wynne. But maybe I'm wrong. So to answer your question, Ohar, I am hoping, sincerely hoping, that the large party which gets the most votes does not control Parliament, and that the third parties, AFC, Wynne, and the other two that have come along, manage to get enough votes that they hold enough seats in Parliament to be the swing vote in Parliament. if we get a government that also controls parliament, we will have an increase of the existing corruption that we see. So parliament needs to be independent, and I'm hoping that we get that. I'm hoping we get an opposition-controlled parliament, but this is so difficult to predict right now.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Tim. Thank you for bringing some clarity to the regional and national. I also had problems reading through Professor Blackman's document. By the way, we will bring Professor Blackman onto the program to discuss this document, so our viewers could get a much more clearer idea of how these votes and seats are allocated. Mr. GHK, what's your thoughts on that? The differential that I drilled down to, or Dr. Blackman drilled down to, was 1,199 votes that literally give winner takes all position and a majority in parliament.
I think I hear counsel there, and I hear your numbers of Dr. Blackman. You know, he's pretty good at these things. But let's look at it from the ground up. You look at our elections, and you know, they're kind of stuck at 73, 74, that low 70 voter turnout. And my sense, I'm going to make a prediction here, it's going to be somewhat higher. It's going to be somewhat higher. Will it reach 80%? It's up in the air, but I think it's going to be closer to there than 70% up in the turnout. That's one. I hear counsel, and he was right there in the trenches in 2020, talking about 10,000 voters for the small parties. I believe that's more right now. Is it 30,000? That'd be good, but I don't think it's sold to that number. I'm glad when I saw, I'm glad, and I must say this openly, when the number went from, what was it, from 19 or 21 or 24, I got lost there with the with the total number of parties, then it came down to 7. I mean, that's a recipe for voter mayhem. Well, who's who here? Where is my guy? Who is what? So 7 parties, and I think that we know about PNC and PPP and AFC, that's 3. And we know enough about wins now and the rest. So I think numbers down, this thing is going to come down that you have that spoiler, you have that showstopper group in the parliament, whether it's the AFC win combination. And now I'm going to introduce something else. Are we going to have an AFC PNC setup? Are we going to have a win PPP surprise? And these are the things that the intelligent voter is weighing in his or her head. And they matter. But let me tell you my situation again in summary. I think it's more than 10,000 is going to be for the small parties, and Win is going to get the majority of that. I think upwards of 80% of that. And I'm really going boldly here. I think it's more than 10 they're going to get that. And we haven't talked about the indigenous presence that Win group seems to attract in whichever region it goes. And that used to be, Council Jonas, as you know, the swing vote. And it seems to me that swing vote, a considerable margin of it, has swung, at least now, in the direction of the new guy. So that has to have some considerable contribution to make to this election coming up if they were to hold. The other thing we must remember, for people who come out, for every one person who come out, there are a couple of others who are intimidated or fearful or cognizant of what could happen to them if they were to show their faces. So that's the stealth factor that we don't know at this moment. And that could really swell that 10,000 to 25,000, and I didn't want to go to 30. When you're talking 5, 6 seats, I am down to some people who know this elections business more than me because they've lived there all their lives, and they're predicting double digits, and they're not win people. They are predicting double-digit seats for the youngster. So do we have a game changer there? Maybe, maybe not. It's up in the air. And September 1 could be very close or very far away.
Very close. Yeah, yeah. So to all of our brothers and sisters and all concerned, we've been trying to keep a mature, civil, and diverse conversation in Globespan. We don't have all the bells and whistles, meaning there's no shouting or colorful languages, just reasonable discussion to disagree and to agree. There are programs where so many people want to speak to a chorus or to a choir, meaning only to their supporters. We don't subscribe to that. I think what we subscribe to is to accept criticism and a diverse set of opinions. Help us to share the message of hope by subscribing to Globespan. And certainly, if you subscribe, once we go live, you will be notified. I also want to stress that we need to count the cost. It's been 59 years in our nation, where we stand today and where we will be standing 25 or 50 years from now. One of the things that Globespan tried to bring out in this conversation was hope and somehow try to see a new light going forward. Count the cost, winner takes all has not been working for us. We need to reason together, and we certainly need to be able to make changes as we move forward in our country. Mr. GHK, 1 minute just for your closing comments, and then I'll shift to Mr. Jonas.
We've had 60 years of race-based politics. It has not progressed us 1 inch. As a matter of fact, it has set us back 150 years. So isn't it time? I'm appealing to the June Taylors, to the Harry Charan, to the Alis, to whomever. Yes, you have your tribal loyalty, but we have a country here. We kind of lose that we kind of lose that perspective when we think of a party and a political party, and that's all we do. Don't we deserve better? Don't we deserve more now that we've got all these fabulous natural resources that the world is talking about, and we are still stuck where we are, in the Burnham days, in the 1960s. I think we owe it to ourselves and to our children and to our dignity and self-respect and to our years ahead, our silver years, that we, start to reason and stop listening to passions and prejudices and make for a better Guyana. Is it going to be one Guyana? I don't know, but I would subscribe. I would even endorse a better Guyana. With that, I say good night and thank you for being here.
Well said, Mr. GHK. Mr. Timothy Jonas, I really want to extend our appreciation. So many people, pull me aside, and I mean, they appreciate your comments, your credibility. They appreciate you being candid in many cases. I think you've become a cornerstone of Globespan, and certainly you've been a foot soldier in fighting for democracy in 2020. Again, I've never met you in person. Looking forward one day to having dinner with you, but certainly I appreciate the conversation and the ability to disagree and agree with you. I hear what you're saying, Mr. Timothy Jonas, in many cases, but I choose to ignore some of it and just look towards hope. So give us your closing comment, Timothy Jonas.
That was very gracious of you, Nohar. Thank you very much, and I do hope we meet face to face so we can quarrel properly over a meal. I look forward to that. I want to express admiration for your own courage. It takes courage to start a show like this and to keep it going. The keyboard warriors continue to attack you, continue to attack another courageous man, GHK, who is holding the line. I think people very easily don't understand what is involved in keeping together a discussion as you have done. If I say the PPP built a road, the APNU folks say you're pro-PPP, you're evil. And then when I say the road is rotten and was built by family and friends and is falling apart already, the PPP folks say you're rotten and you're pro-PNC and you're evil. And nobody realizes that both of the comments are true, that there is infrastructural work going on and that it's being poorly done by family and friends under corrupt contracts. So both comments are true, and yet people are so polarized that they can't recognize the truth and try to find where the solution is. And I want to express my gratitude that you continue to try to focus the conversation to a solution rather than to the biased, prejudiced trolls, the keyboard warriors who continue to make the personal attacks and ignore the truth that is right in front of their face.
Thank you so much. Thank you for those good comments. This show would not have been possible from day one. Devin Bissoon has been in this behind the show. From since we started, I think it was 2019 or 2018. I'm not sure which year, but it's been 6 years. Devin, thank you so much. Thank you for supporting this program. And on behalf of all the people and all the viewers, we thank all the participants and yourself. Have a good night, folks, and we'll see you again. Monday night is Dr. Rose, and next Wednesday would be hopefully myself again as a host. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. GHK, take care.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.